Hello and welcome back. On today's Tuesday Tech Tip, we're going to give you the lowdown on leaders. Straight wire, multi-strand wire, fluoro, mono, which one do you use for what bait? And what's the right length? We're going to talk all about that today with the leader lowdown. So let's get to it. First type of leader we're going to talk about are straight wire leaders. These come in either steel or titanium. I recommend the titanium. And you also want to get the ones that are flexible, that do not crimp. If you take this and bend it, it won't leave that in there. There's a few of those on the market that I really like. There's different types of ends too. This one right here is just tied. You can see that. It's just tied on there. Then others have these kind of crimp ends and they cover them over. These are better for braided line, really almost any kind of line, because your line doesn't rub across it. That's really smooth. Or these, where they cut the end of it, you can kind of feel that end. If your line gets snagged around that, that's really sharp. So I like to take a file and just file that down real smooth so that you don't have that really sharp end there. So the types of lures that you would want to use with this are glide baits. So when you jerk, the leader stays straight and allows you to get really good action on your glides. Also like to use them for bucktails, because when this is running through, you got all this vibration, and this is still, and then when you hook that up, that vibration goes right through your line and it makes it kind of attenuates it, is what I've heard. So I like these for bucktails and glides mainly. Next kind of line we're going to talk about are multi-strand steel or titanium leaders. And I really like these. They're flexible. They do not impede the action of the bait the way a solid steel leader will. Of course, the gliders withstanding, because you do want that straightness with them. But these are good for bucktails as well because it still allows that vibration. They're also good for crankbaits, and they're also good for rubber because what it does is it has that limpness to it and doesn't impede that action. It allows that bait to dive down. So I really like them for rubber, and then I like them for crankbaits, bucktails. This is a very versatile leader, and you just really can almost fish anything with it. You can do dive and rise. Very versatile. You can throw just about anything with it. Some are better than others, and some might impede the action a little bit. You just have to play with it. But I really like these multi-strand leaders. Next, we have a fluorocarbon leader. This is like a 130-pound test. It's very strong. When you use this, you want to rub, especially with fluorocarbon, you want to rub your fingers across that, make sure there's no nicks. I feel a little one right there. The other thing, if you use these crimp connectors and not tie them, you want to check these ends right here. This is when it's starting to really get worn, and where that weight is on there and you're casting, you keep casting, that eventually will break and you'll lose your lure. And if you're throwing a couple $100 lure, that could be bad. But these are excellent for rubber. Almost use them exclusively for rubber. You can do them for dive and rise as well. Use them for dive and rise. But really you can throw crankbaits, bucktail. You can throw anything with it. It's very versatile, just like the multi-strand. But my main focus is going to be dive and rise and rubber for these. Again, doesn't impede the action of the bait. Lastly, we have mono leaders. I use these for trolling. I don't like to go anything below 24 inches for these. And then I like to tie my ends. I have a swivel and a clasp on this side and swivel on this side. And again, pretty much exclusively for trolling. Why I like them for trolling is mono stretches, so it gives you a little bit of a shock absorber when the fish hits, and it doesn't pull the hooks out of the fish's mouth when they strike on a trolling run. So again, like these really well for trolling. Use them for long 2 foot to 4 foot, all depends. Don't necessarily have to have 4 foot. I think 2 foot is good. It keeps it away from it. Other than it does provide you a little bit more shock abrasion or shock absorption if you do the longer leaders. Now I'll talk briefly about size for these, the other ones. So if you talk about size, what you want to do is to figure out how long your leader is. When you're casting, you don't want too long of a leader because it will inhibit the way you can do your figure 8. With a shorter leader, the bait will fall in line better with the tip of the rod as you're doing your figure 8s. So you don't want it to be too long. You don't want it to be too short either. So my rule of thumb is when you lay your bait down, take your leader, set it up beside it, and as long as your leader's longer than your bait, you're good to go. If you've got a longer bait, like this slammer here, that one's getting a little tight. And the reason why you want that longer is if you've got it clipped on here, I guess it'd be this way. If you've got it clipped on here and this line rolls back, you don't want your hooks to grab your line. So this one would probably be okay. It does extend past it a bit. So I think you'd be okay with that one. So I like a 12-inch leader. I think they're really good. And on smaller stuff in the spring, if I'm throwing really small stuff like this, might go with a 9-inch leader or 10-inch leader. But 12 is about the sweet spot for me for casting. Well, there you have the leader lowdown for today. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take 3. Take 12. Hello and welcome back. On today's show, yeah, take 16. We give the lowdown on leaders. Yeah. Take 17. Hello and welcome back. On today's Tuesday Tech Tip, we're going to give you the lowdown. Take 20. Well, which one's right for what bait? Take 21. Straight wire. Straight wire. Alright. Take 22. How's that going? Take 23.